Hello, everyone, and welcome to our career development workshop. My name is Mariela Osario, and I am the Career and Small Business Services Specialist at the Long Branch Public Library. Thank you so much for joining us. I must say, we are very excited about today's special guest, Christopher Bishop, and his topic, How to Succeed at Jobs That Don't Exist Yet. But before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that today's webinar is being recorded. If you would like a copy of the recording, please feel free to reach out to me. Actually, everyone who registered for the event after it goes through the editing process will receive a copy of this recording, but you can also access it through our YouTube channel. And I also want to let you know that this workshop is an interactive one. So if you have any questions or any comments that you want to share, feel free to raise your hand or add it to the chat, and Chris will address the questions and comments as we go along. Now, I would like to share with you my screen very quickly as I introduce to you Christopher Bishop, and tell you a little bit more about him. So Christopher Bishop is a workplace futurist who has had 8 careers so far, including touring rock musician. He actually played with Robert Palmer, a jingle producer. He sang on the first Kit Kat TV commercial, Give Me a Break, and website project manager. He developed Johnson & Johnson's first corporate website. Now, Chris also spent 15 years at IBM in a variety of roles, including business strategy consultant and communications executive at corporate headquarters, driving social media adoption and the use of virtual worlds for training and events. Now, based on this atypical career path, Chris developed a program called How to Succeed at Jobs That Don't Exist Yet, designed to give today's learners insight into how to navigate the new world of work. He has shared this perspective at various universities, including Baruch, Columbia, Duke, Queens College, Stern School of Business at NYU, Texas A&M, and Union College. Chris recorded a live action course for LinkedIn Learning called Future-Proofing Your Data Science Career, which went live in May of 2020. Now, in addition, Chris gave a talk at TEDx Times Square in April of 2013 about his multiple careers. He was also awarded a practitioner residency by the Rockefeller Foundation in 2011 and spent a month at their Bellagio Center on the Lake Como developing his workshop materials and laying out a framework for his book, Improvising Careers. Now, please help me welcome Chris Bishop. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us, and welcome.
Well, thank you, Mariela. Thanks for the gracious introduction. Hello, everybody. As Mariela said, let's make this interactive, right? So we're a small group, but feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll try to answer them as we go. We'll also allocate some time at the end so we can have a dialogue. If any of this doesn't make sense or seems confusing, or you have questions about some of my slides or data points, again, please feel free to interrupt me and share your perspective. So I have a set of charts. Let me find them and share them with you. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to put this in slide share mode with any luck. It will let me.
Yes, they're up.
Okay, so here we go. I'm going to turn off presenter view so you don't see my notes. All right, so how to succeed at jobs that don't exist yet. An interesting theory, right? Let me tell you what I'm going to tell you about. So I want to give you a little bit of my background. So like, why is this guy here? Why did Mariela reach for this guy? What has he got to tell us? I want to then shift gears, talk a little bit about social historical perspective. I think when thinking about what's to come, it's always good to think about what's happened. There's a great book, How We Got to Now by Stephen Johnson, which talks about those kind of topics. I'm going to share a little bit about emerging careers, where they exist, how they're being formulated. Where's the new career nebula, if you will. And then talk about new learning models, because learning and work are inextricably connected, right, these days. Then I want to take you through what I call my future career toolkit, which is a three-step process that I codified and developed based on how I navigated these 8 careers so far. And then talk a little bit about what's next to conclude. So my background. So I've had 8 careers. This is my Gantt chart of what I've been doing since I graduated from college. I have a degree in German literature from Bennington in Vermont. I toured with this band, McKendree Spring. They broke up. I moved to New York, became a session musician, got into the jingle biz to get off the road, sleep in my own bed, taught myself to be a web producer, worked at a couple of agencies in New York, and then was hired by IBM, much to my surprise, and worked there for 15 years in a variety of roles, business strategy and communications. And I left about 8 years ago, and I've been e-tired, as they say at IBM, and working as a freelance writer and consultant. To talk a little bit more about some of that. So these are just some kind of fun pictures to give you a visual representation of my 8 careers. Upper left is me tuning up in a dressing room about to open for the Eagles, I think in Lexington, Kentucky. I was 22 years old, right out of college. Me in my leather pants at CBGB's, fronting my power trio called NYC. Again, I sang on the first Kit Kat jingle, give me a break, ow, give me a break, yeah, break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. And that ran for a long time. And because of residuals, I made a nice taste. Then I worked at IBM for 15 years. This is a shot of me with Watson, right? I was working in corporate headquarters at the IBM Foundation when Watson crushed the 2 reigning grand champions at Jeopardy. So we all went over to where they'd put the stage up and took pictures. This is me behind one of the podiums. As Mariella mentioned, I did a TEDx talk at Times Square. It's on the YouTube. You can Google it. The next picture is me at Caltech. I gave a workshop there a couple of years ago on the future of fintech. This is me in their robotics lab. And one of the main things I'm doing now is I'm the master of ceremonies for an organization called Inside Quantum Technology. We've done 5 events. We just did one in New York, a hybrid version, in fact. First time we've done it with real people in a room in a couple of years. But it was on a sound stage at Ogilvy and Mather. We had about 150 people in the room, about 500 online, covering topics ranging from quantum sensors and clocks and quantum computing, all kinds of quantum information science technology. So that's what's been happening so far. Needless to say, I have some perspective on different kinds of jobs. So again, let's step back and think about the concept of work more broadly, writ large, right? The concept of work, needless to say, has been constantly reinvented, right? Since we were wandering around in the Pleistocene wilderness, say 10,000 years ago, as hunters and gatherers with spears, right? Where the skill needed was how to design and fashion and create a sturdy spear with a sharp point so you could track down the day's meal. It's driven by technology always. And it's part of a process, again, to keep in mind, it's been going on for literally thousands of years. So here's a cobot and a human working together, again, the current technology, if you will. So any history buffs? Can I look in the chat? Anybody into history? This is a quote, and I always put this up as sort of a pop quiz to get people's attention, again, around historical perspective. So I want to ask you who might have said this and when they said it and what they said it about. So I want to make sure I can see the chat. Hang on, I'm just going to pop up the chat here, okay? Again, any history buffs, any idea? I refuse to issue a patent for fear it will put my poor subjects out of work, right? So the tip off is subjects, right? I'll give you a little hint. Obviously a monarch of some kind. So someone overseeing, ruling a kingdom, if you will. Any guesses? I'll give you 5 seconds to put something in the chat if anyone has an idea. No?
No.
Okay. No. So
Sorry.
here's who it was. It was Queen Elizabeth I, right? And she said it about a mechanized knitting machine that was going to, put people who were spinning and weaving at home out of work by industrializing and centralizing a process that had been done a different way prior to 1589 is when she said it. So 430 odd years ago, there were already conversations going on around how technology was displacing existing business models or workforce paradigms, right? So a little more detail. This is a bit of an eye chart. I won't belabor it, but there's a great book. If any of you are into economic history, it's called Technological Revolutions in Financial Capital, written by a woman named Carlota Perez. She's a Venezuelan economist. She taught at Cambridge for many years. She has some cool videos on YouTube, but she breaks down the past 350 years into these 5 cycles of innovation, followed by some kind of crash or resolution, and then deployment or assimilation and standardization. So she calls out the Industrial Revolution as the beginning of this set of trends. We're certainly in the age of information and telecommunications, being influenced by the web and the internet, and now social media and mobile technologies, and coming soon, quantum. So Thomas Friedman said a very astute thing. He's a New York Times journalist, and he's an author. He's written several books, including The World is Flat, which many of you may have read about, sort of the globalization of trade. He says more people can compete, connect, and collaborate in more ways for less money from more places than ever before, right? So that represents opportunity for people looking for new careers or looking to transition into other kinds of roles. Many of the top jobs in 2021 and now 2022 didn't exist 5 years ago, right? So looking back on the past year, here's just a sampling. This is by no means comprehensive, but here are 4 roles that really weren't around 5 years ago. So autonomous vehicle operator, Google and Waymo and other companies are developing vehicles that drive themselves. Crypto asset strategist, how do you put together guidance for people wanting to get exposure to crypto assets and cryptocurrency? Quantum algorithms, a space I'm involved in, right? There are many, many companies, from big players like Google and IBM down to startups like Zapata and Rigetti, who are hiring all kinds of skills to support their quantum information science business model. Vascular tissue engineer, one of my favorites. I'm going to be moderating a panel in a couple of weeks on additive manufacturing strategies, including members of a team from a company that's proposing to print vascular tissue, hearts, lungs, ears, organs, noses. So those are new roles, right? And they represent new companies that didn't exist 5 years ago. So SpaceX, obviously, I mean, that's a brand new model. The private partnership with public sector companies exploring space, the space economy writ large. 3iQ is a Canadian-based company that offers, again, exposure to cryptocurrencies. You can buy, assets that are virtual. Hyperloop is a new transportation model that Elon Musk is developing. Tissue Labs is the company I referred to that's developing bioprinting solutions. NIO is an electric car company in China that's competing with Tesla. Their model is to use rechargeable batteries. You pull into a model of a gas station, they swap out the battery, put a charge one in, boom, you're out the door in like 5 minutes. So again, keep in mind, new companies, new jobs. Big picture perspective from a historical vantage point are that 85% of the jobs people are going to be doing in the next, say, 20 years or so haven't been invented yet, right? Think about that. And they're going to use technology that doesn't exist today, implantable medical devices and holographic learning tools. And here's a vertical farm, new models around ag tech. And they're going to use this technology to solve problems we don't yet know are problems, right? Can you imagine, how do you mine farms that float on the ocean? I mean, lots and lots of, we're going to talk about some new career models in a moment. Where do these emerging careers come from? What do they have in common? Well, I would say that there are 3 criteria. They're certainly driven by tech. As I said at the beginning, it's all driven by tech, whether it's horseshoes or spears or cobots. They connect unlikely disciplines, things that haven't been historically connected, if you will, and they require old skills and new skills. So all of you watching or listening have skills that are, in theory, transferable. There's always going to be a delta or a gap as well. You're going to have to learn something new to score a job, to be successful, to work in a new career. So let's talk more specifically about what these might look like. So say you're into mechanical engineering and pharmacology, right? Worth noting that the chemist who received the Nobel Prize about 3 years ago received it for developing nano machines, right? mechanical devices that operate at the nanoscale, 10 to the -9. So maybe you're into pharmacology at the molecular or atomic level. Here's an example of a device that you could ingest and it would go and find plaque in your arteries, identify it, dissolve it, move on to the next. The ability to deliver medicine directly to the tumor or the wound is increasingly viable. It's happening more and more. How about urban studies and mobility? New models about how we get around urban landscapes. So it might be electric drones that are self-guided, right? Autonomous drones. These vehicles that might run over the tops of cars and traffic could certainly be transportation, but they might have offices, they might have restaurants, they might have shopping, they might have residences, who knows? New ways to think about getting people around urban environments. Maybe you're into robotics and law, two disciplines that haven't connected to the degree they're going to have to. So what do you do if this robot drops a 10-pound box on your foot, or this one breaks grandma's Waterford crystal when it's loading the dishwasher, or this one drops the cat or steps on the dog when it's going up the stairs? Where does the proverbial buck stop? Is it the guy or gal who wrote the software? Is it the company that owns the software? Is it the company that leased the robot? Lots of questions, machines that are making decisions. We have to decide how they are regulated, what kind of policy programs are put in place to deal with these new models. Transportation and artificial intelligence. Beyond autonomous trucks, this is a model of a Swedish company that put together a proposal for driving trucks from a console anywhere, right? This woman is driving a truck down a snowy road, sitting somewhere in a console and probably in an office space, right? Co-working location. Hospitality and astrophysics. Those are kind of unlikely. This is one of my favorites, though. There's a company that's proposing to build a space hotel by 2027, leveraging the technologies that we've learned from the space station. It's going to house 400 people. It's going to orbit above the Earth. It's going to be a cinema. There'll, of course, be research labs. So the question I always like to ask, sort of half jokingly, is, how do you make a bed? Or how do you mix and serve a martini in microgravity? New models around supporting this kind of business approach. Let's talk about the learning models, because obviously these are going to require new skills, these new jobs, these new careers, right? The main takeaway around this as regards learning is that education is not an event that happened in the past, right? You maybe went to school somewhere, took some classes. It's a lifelong process, learning, unlearning, relearning. You've got to constantly be aware of what you know and what you don't know, what you need to learn in order to be successful in your next career. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's from David Blake. He's the CEO of a company called Degreed. They have a cloud-based learning management system connector that pulls their tool into corporate learning environments. He says the future doesn't care how you became an expert. There's lots of ways to do it nowadays. No longer just a 4-year degree. Lots of options for acquiring knowledge to make you viable and employable. MOOCs, for example, massive open online courses offered by lots of companies like Coursera, like edX, like Udacity, Khan Academy. Can take them, whatever, time shift them. And again, they're similar. Some people say they're similar to library books. Like, you don't have to take the whole course. You could read some of it, decide you're not that interested in it, and take something else or move on. But there are options that are out there. Non-traditional options like Wikipedia or videos on YouTube. A friend of mine rebuilt the engine in his Ford Explorer using YouTube videos, rented a winch and cranked the engine out and did it. Twitter, if you follow the right people, thought leaders sharing links and insight on Twitter can be a learning experience. LinkedIn Learning, for sure. I have a course there. There's a rich library of all kinds of learning content. TED Talks, some of them are brilliant. People talking about, leading edge concepts and innovative thinking. One of my favorites is Espresso, which is an app you can put on your phone that The Economist runs, gives a daily kind of update on what's going on in the world, both from a political and a business perspective, easily consumed. Nano Degrees, companies like Coursera are offering programs that give you industry credentials you can take to a potential employer, show that you know how to do something that they value, that they're willing to compensate you for. Other models, MIT and Harvard offer these certificates of achievement or certificates of accomplishment. And again, for a wide range of courses, certainly computer-related content is at the top of the list, but there's all kinds of material and curriculum you can take advantage of in these environments. Udacity offers courseware, data scientist, and Nano Degree. You can get a certificate of participation. Again, all kinds of different ways to learn, but also to have some sort of verifiable acknowledgement that you have these skills. So when you go to look for a new job, you can take this kind of verification to them. This is Amazon Web Services, right? Offering an AWS machine learning course. Pretty cool. This is a key takeaway. This is Laszlo Bock. He was the former chief people officer at Google. He's left to start his own sort of HR startup. He says the world only cares about and pays off on what you can do with what you know. And it doesn't care how you learned it. This will be true no matter where you go to work. So thinking you may have a skills gap, be aware that as jobs and careers evolve, everyone has a skills gap. We're kind of making this up as we go. So identify where your passion is and what the gap is and figure out how to acquire those skills and then move on. I'll talk to you in a little more detail in my future career toolkit about tactical ways to do this. So how do you get hired at Google? Any ideas? So maybe Indeed, yeah, maybe monster.com, possibly. But I know someone who got hired at Google to work in their autonomous vehicles organization, right? Part of Google X, which is now just X. Alphabet is the overseeing company, right? But where they put the job rec was, any guesses? This is a quiz. Any guesses what's an unlikely spot where Google might go to look for resources and talent? Any ideas? Bum, 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 bum.
Local job fairs?
That's a good guess. Yeah, yeah. Other ideas? No? Okay, so check this out.
Oh, Cynthia Becker raised her hand.
Okay, Cynthia, please share.
Oh, let me see. Let me make sure she can. Let me see. Hold on.
Can she speak or read?
Allow to talk. Okay. Okay. Cynthia? Cynthia, you have to unmute. You have to unmute your screen.
Yeah, at the bottom, it should be a little button.
Or if it's easier, just type it in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, sorry. Wait a minute. Got the wrong person. Ah. Okay, Cynthia, you should be good. Can you share your answer?
TikTok?
TikTok. That's a great guess, actually. Yes. So I gave it away right before, pardon me, Cynthia, that I didn't realize you were going to weigh in, but TikTok is a great suggestion. In fact, where they went is Craigslist, but I bet today they probably are using TikTok. So they put a job rec on Craigslist. We're looking for people to drive autonomous vehicles. Let me know if you're interested. So this person got a job at Google in one of the most prestigious and leading edge organizations on the planet by answering an ad in Craigslist, right? And there are some other examples. I don't have TikTok, but I have some others I'm going to share with you. Cynthia, thank you for sharing that. Upwork, you guys familiar with Upwork? There's several versions of this nowadays, but Upwork is kind of the de facto standard for freelance marketplace models, right? So if you're looking for work and you have all kinds of skills, maybe as a writer or a coder or developer or researcher. I've done some work for the Institute for the Future, which is a think tank in Palo Alto, California, and we've used Upwork to identify researchers and writers to do reports on things like the future of transportation. So, excuse me, that's something to keep in mind for those of you looking for opportunities. Set up a profile, go in, look for jobs. This is another interesting model that you should be aware of. It's tied to incubators or startups, right? Organizations that fund new companies. So this one is called Grand Central Tech. It's based in New York. It's in the old Facebook building near Grand Central, sort of a screenshot of what their space looks like. But what they do is you apply for membership, if you will, and they review a lot of companies' proposals, and they pick, say, a dozen or so companies every year, and you're sort of in the program, if you will. And what you get is free workspace, right? Rent-free environment. You get access to VCs and to mentors, and you get to be in an environment where lots of other startups are working together to try to build business models. So it's a pretty cool model, and Google supports these kind of activities. There are lots of different versions of this, but that's the meta model, right? But the reason I'm sharing that with you is that at the end of each year, each term, if you will, they publish a list of graduates of the companies that were accepted and funded and nurtured through this process. And they put the list on their website. So you can go to grandcentraltech.com. I think the overarching company is called Company, in fact, company.com. But anyway, the idea is these companies have gotten, enough funding and orientation and support to now be real companies, real businesses, right? So what I would say is look at all these, to people, certainly mid-career or later career workers who are looking for an opportunity, would be to go to their website or similar sites, the Google projects as well, going on in New York. They incubate and support these kinds of startups, and look at the companies and see what they do. Click on, we could click on Knock. What is that? I don't know, but you could go and find out. And if any of these business models look interesting and or might leverage your skills, I would say reach for executives on LinkedIn. We'll talk about LinkedIn in more detail in a moment, but track down the people at these companies. Maybe their emails are on their website, the corporate website, or ways to get in touch with them. And say you'd like to have, say, a 30-minute informational interview to just introduce yourself, right? And the reasoning is that some of these companies are going to blow up, obviously, go out of business. Some are going to get acquired, maybe Microsoft or Google or Amazon will buy one of them or many of them. And some of them will go on to be successful. One of them might be the next Google, right? But the idea is, based on the rate and pace at which business is being accelerated by technology these days, the odds are good that one of these companies at some point will get a request from a client saying, we need 100,000 of your widgets and we need them by Tuesday. And they're going to go, oh my goodness, we don't know how to do that, or we don't have the resources to do that. We need some adult supervision in here. So that's when you, having made the contact with the C-suite execs or product officers at these companies, have a leg up. So they'll say, well, who is that person, Janine Chasko, that we talked to last week, or Sam Cohen, that guy that came in here from company X? I bet he could help us manage this. Someone who has experience maybe at a company running who knows what, strategy, marketing, legal, operations, on and on, right? HR. So that's a little tip, right, to keep in mind. Again, for career changes, certainly in mid-career kind of models, right? Makes sense? I want to stop for a moment. People, does that make sense to you? Feel free to unmute and say something or type in the chat. No? Good. Okay. We can talk more at the end if you want. So that's a model to look at. Back to Cynthia's comment about where they recruit. TikTok, for sure. Here's examples. They use other kinds of social media. So they use Twitter, they use Instagram, right? They use LinkedIn, lots and lots of different places where people are putting up job opportunities, right? So Classic Technologies is a Israeli-based quantum company. Actually, they have offices all over the world now, but they're always growing and looking for top industry professionals to join the team, right? Google is offering these career certificates to help you qualify for an in-demand job, and they're posting it on Instagram. Amazon is always looking for people, right? That's a growing company. They have, among other things, lots of opportunities at Amazon Web Services, and worth noting that they're one of the first companies to put up instantiations in the cloud of quantum computers. They have 3 quantum computers you can access and run algorithms. So they think there's a pony in there, just saying. And they have the infrastructure. They're using it to ship us all the stuff we buy online. So why not put 3 quantum computers in the AWS infrastructure and see what happens? See what the market, research bears. So that's some ideas about where you can look for new opportunities, right? The Tesla one is on Twitter, by the way. So the Muse, now this is a website that's catering mostly to millennials. So if any of you have kids or recent college grads that are looking for work, this is certainly a place they should know about. But you, if you're mid-career, can go to this site as well. Sign up for their newsletters. They post job opportunities pretty much every day at really interesting companies. And again, it's not just, millennials and Gen Z. It's companies that need all kinds of skill sets. They have certified coaches to help you strategize your job search, tweak your resume, work on your LinkedIn profile. So again, opportunities for help to transition.
Chris, I'd like to jump in. I
Yes.
I personally subscribe to the Muse, and I must admit they have excellent articles, even if you're not looking for, a new job. Yes, it's true. They you can filter in like what you are looking for, and you can get it straight into your email your inbox. On a weekly basis, and new jobs like new HR jobs, new tech jobs, new, whatever the industry you're in. But more importantly, they have very interesting articles. For instance, especially now with the great resignation that has gone into the great reshuffle,
Yeah.
um, where people are transitioning from one industry to the other, they have excellent tips and hacks on how to give your 2-week notice, how to write a cover letter specifically focusing on the company that you are applying for. So I highly recommend it. It's all free of charge. And you choose how many emails you want to receive. You can do, daily, weekly, monthly. So I highly recommend it. I've
Yeah.
learned a lot from the Muse, and I highly recommend it to anyone. So I just wanted to put in my 2 cents
Yeah.
worth.
Great. No, thanks, Cynthia. Yeah, I totally agree. And you just get a sense that they're very passionate about what they do. I met one of the women who founded it, and she and her co-founder were like McKinsey consultants, whatever, and were not, geared for that world, and decided they really wanted to help put together a socially driven website to help people figure out, how to find the dream career, if you will. So thanks, Cynthia. Yeah, their stuff is great, really. And the net is they list jobs pretty much every day. I bet they have like 10 to 15 companies that are looking for talent
And it's
across a range of
nationwide.
disciplines. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is nationwide. So if you're planning on relocating to the Chicago area or the Texas area or wherever, again, use those filters, and you can get all of the information you need in your email
Yeah.
inbox.
Yeah. No, thank you, Cynthia. Yeah. I'm a fan too, for sure. So let's talk about the Future Career Toolkit. So I put this together a few years ago. I've been working on it for a while, in fact, thinking about how did I navigate through these 8 careers where there are commonalities, where there are processes that were similar. So I reflected on it and came up with these 3 tools that I want to share with you. I call them voice, antenna, and mesh, right? So voice is kind of defining your brand. It's like a product development exercise, if you will. Antenna is finding conversations where the triggers that the voice identifies are going on, people are having around those topics. And then mesh is connecting with the actual people and organizations who share your interests, right? So let's get into it here. And I will share this. I have a workbook that's a PDF that you can use if you decide this is interesting. I'll share it with Marielle, and she can distribute it. So let's talk about voice. So this is defining your uniqueness. What is it that makes you stand out? What skills and experience make up your personal brand, if you will, right? Because personal branding is key nowadays, right? It's how you define who you are, and by in turn your value proposition to a potential employer. So the exercise is to pick a favorite movie, book, TV show, game, could be current or from your childhood, and think about what you like about it. What are the 2 or 3 aspects that you relate to? I developed this with a ideation guru, this friend of mine, Brian Matamore. He has a company called the Growth Engine, and he does in-person ideation sessions with big clients like Louis Vuitton and Walmart to drive out ideas for new products and services. He spends 3 and 4 days in a room with a bunch of whiteboards and flip charts. So he and I sort of put this together to develop triggers that would help you find out what it is that you're interested in and passionate about. So here's my example. I picked a movie, Blade Runner 2049. And the reason I picked, actually, I saw it 3 times. I saw it in IMAX, I saw it in 3D, and I saw it in a regular theater, just to give you a sense of how much I'm into it. But the idea is I like the future culture. I find intriguing, and certainly the technology, right? Where's technology going to be in 2049 and beyond? And the book I picked is More. It's The World Economy from the Iron Age to the Information Age. It's written by Philip Coggan, who's a writer for The Economist magazine. I'm sort of a closet economic historian, if you will, because at the end of the day, it's all about business, right? So this book talks about, how we've been doing business writ large for, literally thousands of years. So economics and global business. So those are my sort of topics, my triggers, right? So the next exercise in the Future Career Toolkit is antenna. Now, the good news is there are lots of sources of information out there today. The bad news is there are lots of sources of information out there today, right? It's a mixed blessing. So the challenge is rationalizing and performing triage on the tsunami of data that's available. So this exercise, I ask you to research sources, tracking, say, culture, business, society, politics, technology, based on the voice topics. Pick a range of sources, media channels, and assign a frequency. We want to put some routine around it, right? Some regimen. So my examples are here. So future culture, as I said, the Blade Runner movie teased that out for me. So some of my sources include Futurism, which is a website that also publishes a newsletter. I get it daily. Always has interesting leading edge articles about technology and business. The Futures Agency is a company based in Switzerland, actually, that conducts sort of quarterly webinars about the future and technology and business. For tech, I read the Silicon Valley Business Journal, which is, in fact, a print newspaper, but also they have newsletters as well. They have a website. And I get the newspaper like once a week. So it's like, print, back to print, right? But also newsletters that come into my inbox. And they talk, their bent is more toward what's going on in Silicon Valley, but the implications are broader, right? So who's spending money, who's buying or renting real estate, who's building stuff, what companies are merging or got funded, kind of thing. BBC Click is, of all things, a TV show that's on once a week. And they talk about emerging technologies. They go to sort of research labs and startups and interview people with leading edge technologies that they're trying to investigate and turn into business models. For global business, Bloomberg Tech is a daily show that's on television. And I usually watch it weekly. I sort of record them and then watch it once a week. Espresso, as I mentioned, is an app, but this is just a sampling, right? So to Cynthia's point, if there are TikTok videos that are being produced that are in line with your areas of interest, look at them. I'm a fan of elite newspapers. I mean, I read the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and Washington Post, and I don't get print versions anymore, but they represent a level of conversation around technology and business that you don't find other places. You can set Google alerts as well to pull this kind of information into your inbox, right? Familiar with Google alerts, I assume. So then the third future career tool is Mesh. This is what's called an in-map, and LinkedIn used to offer this a few years ago, but I think they decided at some point that the server load wasn't warranted based on the attributable revenue it was tied to, which is probably a fair assumption. But this is a visual representation of my point in time network. So the green might be, musicians that I work with. The blue dots might be IBMers that I was affiliated with. The orange dots on the right might be, say, workplace futurists. The purple might be people I knew from high school. But the idea is you have a network. It exists to varying degrees. You want to make it bigger. Again, the adage that used to be ascribed just a showbiz is now true in every business. It's not what you know, it's who you know, right? So it's a never ending job. You want to be, you don't wake up on Tuesday and go, oh, okay, I'm done. I got my network. I'm set. I can chill. It's like never, right to the end. You're going to be connecting with people and expanding your list of who you know and who knows you. So for this exercise, again, I encourage you to go on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the lingua franca, right? It's the coin of the realm. It's where conversations go on around work. I mean, it's where you need to have a really tricked out profile that represents your broader value prop, right? Put up digital assets, put up stuff you've done recently. Make sure the groups you're part of represent and reflect your areas of interest and talent. So I ask you to pick 1 to 3 people based on your shared interest and find one group to join based on your topic. And I'd say do it this week and do it again next week, right? Make it a job. So here's an example from my network. For Future Culture, I tracked down this guy, Garrett Lienhart, who's the CEO of the Futures Agency. And he's actually a musician like me. He's a guitar player, went to Berkeley briefly. But he runs these really insightful webinars quarterly. For tech, I connected with Krista Savor. She's the GM of quantum software at Microsoft. And in my role as the MC of Insight Quantum Technology, she's someone that I want to be connected with to maybe be involved in my podcast or speak at one of our events. For global business, I connected with Tom Malone, who wrote a wonderful book called The Future of Work, by the way, which I highly recommend. He's a professor and an author, and he teaches at MIT Sloan, the School of Management. So he's up in Boston. So those are just examples of 3 people. I mean, there are obviously many more, but this is just to give you a sampling of the kinds of talent / resources / contacts that I'm connecting for. For a group, I joined Future Culture, which is part of the Institute for the Future, and they have a LinkedIn group, and they sponsor events actually, but they also have running commentary about topics that they're focused on tied to future thinking and scenario planning for the next century, if you will. Terrific content. And they have a website as well where you can get reports and research that they do. But again, a group on LinkedIn. So the key is find 1 to 3 people to connect with, and then find one group, put in the parameters and track down contacts. So what's next? My closing call to action / admonition is think about your voice. It's going to continually change, right? Reflect on what makes you unique, knowing it'll evolve. So when I was a traveling bass player on the road, my voice was very different than when I was working at IBM corporate headquarters, designing tweets about software financing, right? Antenna, be diligent about monitoring information sources and finding new ones and gleaning trending around areas you're interested in and ultimately where you might work, right? And the mesh piece is, I always, when I speak to university students, but I say this to everyone, add 5 people a week to your profile. Reach for them when you're ready to move to your next job. Make it a job. I always say, if you get to Friday at 5 o'clock and you haven't added 5 people to your network, stop what you're doing, turn off the TV, step away from the gaming console, make a cup of coffee, and sit down and put in some Boolean parameters into LinkedIn based on the voice triggers and find people to connect with. Jiggling doorknobs. The more people that you know and know who you are, the better your chances of moving into a new and interesting role. Right? So, little plug for my course. I did a course for LinkedIn Learning called Future Proofing Your Data Science Career. So anyone who's interested in that particular discipline might want to take a look. But the reason I bring this up is about 20 minutes in, the producer and I acted out a scenario for my Future Career Toolkit. So if you have LinkedIn Premium, by the way, you can get this course for free. I think otherwise it might be $29. But, if you're on LinkedIn Learning, check out this course and go. You don't have to deal with the data science stuff. It's interesting, a little bit arcane, but fast forward 20 minutes in and you'll see me and this producer with a whiteboard in a conference room acting out how to fill in and leverage the Future Career Toolkit. Okay. So that's the story. And I look forward to seeing you in the future. Please get in touch. Here's my email address. I think Marielle has it as well. Connect with me on LinkedIn, please. I accept LinkedIn requests. You can follow me on Twitter. I have a Twitter handle @Chris Bishop. So Thank you, Mariella. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to you. If it'll let
Thank
me.
you so much, Chris. Really appreciate it. And yes, for those of you who are interested, I do have Chris's PDF file, and I will be more than happy to share that with you. Just send me an email. And actually, I am going to share my screen very quickly. And again, I want to thank Chris for his time and for sharing his expertise and his tips with us. Again, this is the presenter's information, his website, and his email address. And I am, if you are interested, oops, wait a minute, forgive me. Wait, I lost you guys. I'm sorry. Hold on
No,
one sec.
we're here.
Stop sharing. Oh, there you
No
are.
worries.
Okay, I did want to put up, but I may just add it into the chat. I'm going to include my email address for everyone if anyone is interested in getting a copy of Chris's PDF. Wait, forgive me.
No worries.
Or see, this is what happens when I don't pre-caffeinate.
There you go.
So
We're all good.
anyway, I can be reached at the Long Branch Public Library. You can easily go on, Google Long Branch Free Public Library, and you will see my contact information there. I just added it to the chat. And before we go, does anyone have any questions or any comments for Chris? Again, feel free. I unmuted everyone, I think. So feel free to ask your questions or share your comments. Chris shared with us a lot of interesting information. Or if you feel more comfortable, feel free to reach out to Chris directly. You saw his contact information, and we would love to hear from you. So
Yes, please
thank
feel free to,
you.
feel free to connect on LinkedIn or send me an email. Happy to continue the conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. Really do appreciate it. And again, I just want to remind everyone that our career development workshops are held once a month on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock. Please check out our website for updated webinars. We look forward to seeing all of you in the future. Have a wonderful and safe day, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Mariella. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Chris, are you there?